Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from, welcome. It's really nice to have you, and it's a pleasure for you to join us today. My name is Mwongera, joining you from Kenya, Nairobi. And today we are going to have an interesting and very good conversation. I'm sure you're really going to enjoy yourself. And the topic of today is Leapfrogging Africa. Joining us either on LinkedIn, YouTube, or the Bayer Foundation website. So pleasure to have all of you for this conversation. I am a scientist on farming systems and climate change, working for the Alliance of Biodiversity International, CIAT. So I'm going to be the moderator for this session for today. So the next 1 hour, you're going to hear from our fantastic speakers who will be lined up for us. And I'm sure you're going to enjoy the conversation. So to start us off, I would like to invite the 4 speakers who are joining us today to make a brief introduction and so that you can get to know them. So please welcome our panelists for today. Pleasure to have you, and we look forward to hearing and learning from you about this study. So let's have the introductions. Let's start with Kola, please.
Hello, Caroline. Thank you so much. My name is Kola Masha. I'm the Managing Director of Babangona. At Babangona, we believe that poverty has trapped many farmers in difficult lives. At Babangona, we believe that good, kind, hardworking people like them do not deserve this fate. We know if farmers follow Babangona's simple 3-step path to a better life, they will have a better, more peaceful life.
Thanks, Kola. So our next panelist is going to introduce themselves also is Monica. Welcome, Monica.
Yeah, thanks, Caroline. My name is Monica Nessel. I'm the Executive Director of the Bayer Foundation. And the vision of the Bayer Foundation is to catalyze science and social innovation for a world with health for all and hunger for none. So we support science as we see it as a basis for progress, and social innovation as an enabler for long-lasting change. And through our programs, we support social entrepreneurs and help them to scale so that they can have a long-lasting impact and induce systems change. So we focus on Africa, and I'm very much looking forward to the panel today.
Thank you, Monica. So next, let's have introductions from Reiner.
Hello. Good evening, good afternoon. I'm Reiner Klingholz. I am one of the authors of the study we are talking about today, and I am the former director of the Berlin Institute for Population and Development until last year. And I produced this study together with Sabine, and we did most of the study in South Africa at the Stellenbosch Institute for Advanced Studies, from where we could visit some of the projects we describe in the study.
Thanks, Reiner. And to go last but not least, we are going to have Ursula. Kindly introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Caroline, for having me today in the panel here. My name is Uschi Kölzer. I'm a food security manager at Bayer Crop Science. And in my function, I'm responsible for leading Bayer's approaches in activities to improve food security, not only in Africa, but also in Asia and Latin America. And my major goals are to support the gender-smart approach of Bayer, developing a food loss and waste curriculum, and also advocating for modern agriculture and innovation in the frame of sustainable agriculture. My team and we were so lucky to be able to support the execution of the study we are talking today. So I'm really happy that we're going to be here together and discuss the study. Thank you.
Thank you, and welcome to our panelists. We really look forward for the next 45 minutes to 1 hour for this conversation today. And to all those who are joining us today, As you hear, this is really a study that is looking at different dimensions that affect development and has really focused on the area of agriculture, health, and education, which are really core in terms of the development of Africa. So we look forward to really learning about some of the insights from this study, and especially because the topic and the title of this study is also very interesting. It's leapfrogging and Africa, and we really want to know what are some of the sustainable innovations that were investigated by the team that worked on the study. What can we learn? And especially at this time when we are talking about building back better, then how can these solutions be able to take us forward? And how can we be able to take the development of this continent of Africa forward, bringing everybody on board and making sure that we have sustainable innovations that help us to address the development challenges that really affect our continent and have been affecting us for so many decades. So to start us off, because we are really curious and looking forward to hear all about this study, Reiner, can you just tell us about the study? Tell us more about what was it about and what are some of the key insights that you and your co-authors found in your investigation. So Reiner, kindly let us know about the study and welcome to give us a short presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Caroline. Well, first I could ask, or you could ask, why did we do this study? And there are two main reasons for that. And the first reason is Africa has a growing population. It will more or less double within the next 30 years. And all these people need food. All these people need healthcare and education, and of course they need jobs. And at the same time, in nearly all aspects of development, most African countries are lagging behind global average, as can be seen here in this picture, which shows you the Human Development Index from the United Nations. And there are new challenges emerging, as you know, like the corona crisis or like climate change. So as development is too slow in some of the regions in Africa, people remain poor, fertility rates remain high, and in some regions end up in a circle of poverty and high population growth, which makes future challenges even more difficult. So all this sounds highly problematic, but at the same time, there are large opportunities for Africa, and these opportunities have to be harvested. First, these four needs I mentioned, food, healthcare, education, and jobs, are crucially interlinked. So improving the situation in one of these sectors will have a positive catalyzing impact on the others. And second, lagging behind means that you can leapfrog, you can develop in social and technological fields through the adaptation of new systems, new ideas, new technologies, without going through unwanted, expensive, inefficient, or environmentally harmful intermediate steps. So the best example everybody knows for leapfrogging is the telephone system. Africa has just skipped building large infrastructure for landline communication and leapfrogged directly to mobile technology. And the result was better communication, online banking, access to online knowledge, online insurance systems. And in that sense, Africa is definitely further developed than some European countries. So what does leapfrogging mean in terms of education, health, and agriculture? First, you have to know leapfrogging is not only about technology. Leapfrogging is on basic structures as well. For example, digital health services can be extremely helpful for African countries, but for a rural area without any healthcare infrastructure at all, a simple health post, as you see here, a simple health post, which you see here, this is part of the health extension program in Ethiopia, with trained laypersons that teach about hygiene and prevention and can assist during pregnancy and childbirth, can be a huge step to a better service. So leapfrogging from nothing to this health post means a lot. And certainly this doesn't look like high technology, but the health extension program in Ethiopia, which you see here, helped to reduce mother and child mortality by 50% within a 12-year time period. And that's quite amazing. So in this study, we explain what leapfrogging means in the fields of health, education, and agriculture. And as Caroline already said, these are the crucial sectors for development. And we have looked for best practice examples in these three sectors that can and should be copied and upscaled. There are many successful pilot projects in Africa, but their achievements remain limited as long as too few people can profit from these ideas. I will present you just one or two examples from each sector. Many more you will find in the book. So let's start with health, because health is the foundation of any socioeconomic development. Only healthy people can become productive for themselves, for their families and society. So the best practice example I'm going to give you here is different from the Ethiopian one because it uses modern technology. The project is called Mom Connect. Well, we should have the next slide, which...
Is it working right now?
Okay, good. Sorry. It's not working. This is Mom Connect. No. This is Mom Connect. Well, it's Mom Connect. It's a project from South Africa. It's a simple service to improve maternal and infant health. So expectant women can register when pregnancy is confirmed at a clinic. The service then is designed for even the most basic mobile telephone. So you don't need a smartphone to interact with My Connect. And the system is available in several local languages, and the service is free. Registered women can receive regular SMS messages with information and advice through all stages of pregnancy, around birth, and also for the first weeks and months with the infant. Women can also ask questions by text messages, and an automatic system looks for matching answers from a set of frequently asked questions. If there are special questions that pregnant women have, a help desk would even call the women back. So South African Health Ministry launched Mom Connect nationwide in August 2014, and so far 3 million users have been registered. Help desk gets about 2,500 messages a day, and basically Mom Connect can be and is already extended to other health issues, such as the adherence of HIV therapy or the control of hypertension. And it has been quickly adapted to COVID-19 in spring 2020. In the meantime, it provides useful data to the health system of the South African government, and these data were not available before. It can be easily scaled up for other countries. It is cheap and effective, and that's exactly what leapfrogging means. So the next is education. Education, again, is a basic investment. It empowers people, increases income, improves health, etc. And the best practice example we have, I'm going to talk about shortly, is comes from Kenya. It's the Tusoma program, which that was created to improve reading skills for young kids. Tusoma in Swahili means let's read. The problem in Kenya was that most kids are enrolled or were enrolled, which is better than in many other African countries, but enrollment didn't necessarily mean that the kids really learned to read and write properly. So Tusoma defined several different principal tasks. The program created a lesson plan. It explained what exactly kids should learn until grade 3. And then it told teachers and principals what and how they had to teach, and the program provided support for the teachers. And for that, the program printed some 40 million new textbooks and made sure that teaching materials were distributed all over the country in every primary school. And then it set measurable goals and it monitored the outcome. The monitoring was important, and for that the program employed more than 1,000 curriculum support officers, which visited every school several times a year without prior announcement. These officers documented the progress in learning and the presence of teachers on a tablet. So the results were collected in a central database, and the government had real-time results. And the government could intervene if necessary. So altogether, this was kind of a mix of control and support to the schools, and to the teachers. And an independent evaluation showed impressive success. After 3 years, the number of children with reading skills in English and Swahili that can be expected for their age had doubled to 70%. And the evaluation said that no other program known worldwide has shown such a success in such a short time, with costs of only $4 per child and year. Again, this is leapfrogging, cheap investment, use of technology, and great success. And then the next and the last topic would be agriculture. Again, here in agriculture, it's not only big leaps, not only technology, but also small steps that can be important to leapfrog in the field of agriculture. And this shows you what the concept of leapfrogging for agriculture is. So the overall goal is, what you see here is a sustainable, climate resilient intensification of agriculture. And the goal and the target can be seen on the right-hand side in the green box, is higher productivity, better food security without harming the environment. And you can see the potential harming effects that many people have experienced in the past in the orange boxes. So if you follow the brown cases in the graph, you see leapfrogging begins with knowledge transfer, information about meaningful agricultural practices. Also important is access to better means for enhancing productivity and to adapted methods like irrigation, like the use of fertilizers, plant protection, certified seeds, etc. And with the use of technology and data collection and adapted precision farming methods become possible. And then finally, digitization and more mobile communication also improve access to insurance systems for farmers. So a good example for improving smallholder livelihood following this concept is Babangona in Nigeria. And of course, I'm not going to tell you anything about Babangona because we have Kola Masha with us, who knows much more about the project and will tell you about it in a minute. But another interesting example for leapfrogging by technology in agriculture is Hello Tractor, which is active in several African countries. It's kind of an Uber service for farming machinery. One of the problems in smallholder agriculture in Africa is that these smallholders can rarely invest into machinery. And there is no coordination between the users of machinery, not much sharing of technology, lack of technicians and spare parts for maintenance, etc. So Hello Tractor developed a low-cost, smart device with GPS and telematics technology. It's a small box that is built into the tractors of private owners or companies with a tractor fleet. Hello Tractor created a platform for connecting owners and customers. And like with Uber cars, the system knows where the next tractor is. It allows tracking of time each machine was used and the area it served. And then regional booking agents collect customer requests from a certain area via a mobile app and then send matching tractors and drivers to the farmer. Hello Tractor partners with tractor producers, with ICT companies, with banks and agricultural organizations to build up a whole system from financing for fleet owners to servicing customers. So as you see, these are just some small examples, but important examples for leapfrogging. We have found many more best practice examples in all these sectors, and they show everything is possible, even under difficult conditions, if African governments and organizations are ready to use leapfrogging opportunities. Technologies and ideas are around, they only must be used, and of course they can be improved. You can find all this and more in our publications, which can be downloaded free from our Berlin Institute website. And so that's all for me for the moment, and I'm ready to listen to the other partners of the discussion.
Thank you, Reiner. That's very insightful and exciting. And for me, especially having read the study and working as a research and development practitioner in Africa, I found that as an eye-opener to really see some of those best practice examples. I mean, you've just described a few of them, and as the listeners can get from you where they can go and download the reports, then they can be able to also learn more about this study. So congratulations to you, your co-authors and the Berlin Institute for this work. It's a good job. And also to Bayer for supporting this work. So just before we go on, Reiner, and I let you go, I would like to ask you, what did you find most exciting in this study while you're taking the work? What was the most exciting part for you for the work that you carried out across these different geographies in Africa?
Well, if you hear people talking about Africa in other regions of the world, normally problems dominate the discussion. But if you are in Africa, if you talk to people, projects, organizations, etc., you find interesting ideas. You find these leapfrogging ideas wherever you look, in all these sectors. And it's amazing how the young population of Africa, which is very open to technology, is ready to use these ideas to improve the situations in these fields and in other fields as well. I mean, the energy sector has to be reformed in Africa, etc. Infrastructure has to be built, but there are many ideas around, and it would be definitely useful if these people active in these fields could be better linked to each other, so these ideas can either be upscaled or transported from place A to place B, from one country to another. So we need some exchange within the community that is interested in developing Africa.
Thank you for that. So what I hear from you, if I have to just say some of my takeouts, is that leapfrogging is really about omission of individual stages in the development process. So we want to make the development process fast, affordable, and sustainable, and we are pursuing it with the aim of being scalable. So it's really good to hear that. And you also say that leapfrogging is just not about technologies. And you have seen also some very good best practice examples from some of the regions where people are not looking for those examples. So Africa, in this case, has some good practice examples that can also go to other areas of the world, even more developed nations. So it's really nice to be able to learn about those examples and the study what has highlighted. So at this point, I want to bring our other panelists to be able also to give their insights and also to be able to, I'm sure they have also had the opportunity to read the study. So I would like to bring them on, and starting with Monica, to really give us what does she see as some of the biggest challenges and opportunities for Africa, especially how can we use this evidence from the best practice studies that have been presented in this work to be able to move quickly, learning from past mistakes. What do you see as opportunities and challenges, Monica?
Yeah, thanks, Caroline. I think that, of course, the people are the biggest capital. And for me, it's about how can we empower them and enable them to make the leap. And that's also why we, with the Ecosystem Fund, support entrepreneurs. And I remember, well, I had the chance to go to Senegal and visit one of our partners, MyAgro, and they are supporting smallholder farmers by providing a saving platform so they can save little by little money, their own money over time, so that they are ready to buy seeds and fertilizers at the planting time. And this is also delivered by MyAgro so that they have it in time and also in a good quality. So I had a chance to talk to some of the smallholder farmers, and one particularly is still very much in my mind. It was a young woman. She had several children, but she could really, through my agro, earn an income, and also was very proud to tell me that she could send her kids to school. And I think this is really lifting out of poverty, become part of the market, and through this become more independent and grow your own income. Sending kids to school is one way of getting out of this cycle of poverty. I mean, we also heard it's the youth unemployment is very high, and how can we really get jobs to the people so they can lift themselves out of poverty? For me, that's one key element to look at.
Okay, thank you. Kola, you're coming to us from Nigeria, and as a practitioner with Babangona based in the continent of Africa, especially in Nigeria, what do you see from your experience and the work of the institution as some of the opportunities and challenges that we could see in terms of trying to scale, especially some of these best practices?
Well, I would like to begin by just echoing Monica's points, particularly around the issue of rising youth unemployment, and really hone in on really what we see as the fundamental challenge, not just facing Nigeria, but really the entire region, which is just dramatic rise in insecurity. I think if you look at some of the studies, particularly coming out of, say, the University of Sussex, that has been tracking insecurity events across the globe since the 90s, in the last decade across the continent, we've seen a 7-fold increase in insecurity. That's 7-fold, 7 times in a single decade. And we fundamentally believe that just as oxygen is to fire, so are unemployed youth to insecurity. And we've seen just a dramatic number of youth enter an already oversaturated workforce. In Nigeria alone, from 1990 to 2010, we had 20 million young people enter an oversaturated workforce that triggered not 1, not 2, but actually 3 insurgencies. Now, what motivated us to start Babangona back in 2010 was the recognition that from 2010 to 2030, over the next 20 years, 4 times that number of youth, 80 million people, nearly the population of Germany, the 4th largest economy on the planet, will be entering an already oversaturated workforce. And we asked ourselves a very simple question. If 20 million youth entering the workforce triggered 3 insurgencies, what would 80 million do? And so we committed ourselves in 2010 to basically unlock the power of agriculture as the region's job creation engine and create around 10 million jobs through agriculture. And so that's what really led us down the path to focus on Babangona. Now, as I think Reiner talked about, I think the reality is there are many challenges, but as you start exploring going down this path, you are forced to start to identify solutions to these challenges. So if we focus now on the challenges associated with enabling young people in particular to unlock agriculture as a job creation engine. Really, fundamentally, young people have 3 key challenges that are even greater than the average smallholder farmer. And those are, they tend to have less smaller size farms due to hereditary practices. So what that means is that for them to basically be able to make a living income, a living wage off of a small farm, they have to dramatically increase their productivity. Now, this is hampered by the fact that young people tend to have less savings. And so because of that, they struggle to be able to invest in their farms, and also their cost of production also significantly higher as well. And so what this means is that at the end of the day, the biggest challenge that these smallholder farmers face is really access to finance, to be able to purchase the quantity and quality of inputs they need to be highly profitable and productive. And really for us, that's really where we saw the opportunity to leverage technology to dramatically unlock significant amounts of financing to farmers. That, today, Babangona has grown to become the single largest maize-producing entity in West Africa. We're farming an area this season about 80,000 acres. That's equivalent to about 5 Manhattans. Expecting to double in size this next year, farming an area of over 160,000 acres. So I think fundamentally those are the key challenges and some of the solutions that we see.
Thank you so much, Kola. And it's great to hear that Babangona is already using innovations around technology, especially around creating impactful employment for the youth and solving the challenges for the youth in Africa. So let's go to Ush and ask about her experience in terms of looking at the study. Anything that's exciting? Are you as excited as the other panelists? What do you feel about what stood out for you in this study, Ush?
Thank you. I think what excites me most was really the incredible number of fantastic examples how digital solution can actually help the country to thrive. And I think Reiner talked about how leapfrogging actually was enabled by the mainly part of the telecommunication leapfrog. And there is much bigger potential in that area for Africa than we see, for example, actually in Germany at the moment. And this is something which for me was extreme eye-opening. Reiner talked already to some of the most impressive examples, and I think there is still a lot. It is just a glimpse potentially what we potentially see if we go and dig deeper in Africa. So the biggest opportunity really is to make this happen and to scale that up and to work together to really improve these ideas which are out there in scaling through whole Africa. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I want to just come back, especially to Reiner, because we hear from our panelists that there's a lot in terms of opportunity, especially where we embrace technology and we embrace also people coming together. So you have been having this project, especially during the COVID period. You have insights also on the pandemic that has really impacted economies, and in Africa, especially the issue of inequality has really been heightened. We see that now we are more aware of why we need to look at issues of sustainable food systems, issues of also looking at how we are looking at how to improve lives for the most vulnerable members of our society, and be it aspects of health, agriculture, and also education, they have all been tested by the pandemic. So Reiner, what do you see in terms of some of the challenges that COVID presents? Because you have some best practice examples that were before COVID. Does you see that COVID is going to be a factor in terms of how this is going to be scaled, especially those cases that you had time to study? How does that look like in the future with the COVID and post-COVID status?
Well, you are right that the pandemic really hits Africa in a different way that, for instance, Germany or Europe. So the number of casualties, even though we don't have that much testing in Africa, in Africa seems to be lower because Africa has a young population. And in many areas, people are kind of used to a high virus attack, and their immune system might be a bit more fit than our immune system here in Europe. But at the same time, the economic cost of COVID is enormous for Africa. And this is also true for the transfer of development cooperation money, because everything is channeled to the COVID field now, and you have countries are lacking resources for malaria protection, for HIV protection, tuberculosis, etc. And at the same time, many markets have been broken down. So the challenge is enormous for Africa, and there is probably more to come in the near future. But on the other hand, I think the pandemic is kind of a catalyst for more web-based projects in education, in health, and in agriculture, because it can be seen that IT and web-based projects can be used even under COVID conditions. What I talked about this project in South Africa for pregnant women and their children. This was easily adapted to the COVID pandemic to distribute information about the pandemic and what can be done to protect yourself. But there is another thing I just want to mention very shortly, coming back to what Kola said. I think it's very important to focus on agriculture for the provision of jobs for young people, because normally people tend to think that the intensification of agriculture in Africa means that jobs are killed, because people will work in larger farms with machinery and you don't need so many hands anymore. But this is only partly true, because the reality is that young people are not really interested in this kind of subsistence farming, which is common in many areas in Africa. So what these people might be interested in is a more modern form of agriculture. With better technologies, with better access to financial resources. That's exactly what Babangona is trying to build up. And what is even more important is the downstream processing of primary agricultural products. That's where the money is made. If you just produce maize, that's one thing. But if you produce supermarket projects out of maize or out of potatoes or out of manioc, that's where much more money can be made. So the downstream processing in rural areas could provide a high number of jobs, high number of incomes, and that's really important for this in the field of agriculture.
Thanks, Reiner. So so let's maybe have also insights from Monica, because Monica, you have a role leading as executive director for Bayer Foundation, and we know that your organization is really at the center of looking at aspects of social innovation, especially in areas of health and nutrition. So I would like also for you to tell us, looking at especially the COVID pandemic, how do you see this translating in terms of the 3 priority development areas that this work was focusing on? What do you see in looking at the future would be some of the main challenges in those 3 areas of health, education, and as well as agriculture?
Thanks, Caroline. As Reiner already pointed out, there is a kind of a danger that we only focus on COVID but forget malaria, HIV, and a number of other infectious diseases. And that's also where we had a focus on, and we're working together also with the London Institute of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, and also developed an SMS service for the people in Africa. So to keep this awareness high, because unfortunately, these diseases are not disappearing. So, and as you already heard also in the report, it's also an advantage because we can use mobile phones to communicate these messages, as people are very much prone to use their phone and to follow also respective advice. On the other hand, we are also working with organizations like Living Goods in Uganda. They train and further develop health community workers. And here we also help them to digitize their services. And what they were telling me is that they really could see an increase in the work of the health community workers, a more intensifying dialogue, which also was really good and could help to improve then the overall health situation. But again, that was only possible also because they very closely interacted with the government. So I think it's also playing in the whole ecosystem. So it's not about only promoting entrepreneurships, it's also about the whole ecosystem working together, innovators, NGOs, governments, academic institutions. So it's all needed to make this leap.
Okay, so thank you for that. So We heard from Kola about Babagona and how they're focusing especially on the youth. And we know that in Africa, job creation is a top priority, especially among the youth. We have average unemployment rates of 20% across the continent. And if you see, even for the females, we have up to an average of 26%. I mean, there's some regional disparities. So in some regions, we have even numbers that are higher than that. So the youth presents a challenge. Kola, what is missing in order to encourage entrepreneurship among local African farmers? What do you think we could do?
Well, I think, I think first and foremost, it ties to get the farmer successful, right? So the fundamental thing that's missing is access to finance is critical. Now, in addition to that, they do need other support as well. If you look at what we do at Babangona, we provide really a holistic end-to-end package. The beginning is training. Second, as I mentioned, and most importantly, is finance. Third is the the inputs that they need now come as a really holistic end-to-end package of inputs that includes basically really everything they need besides the land and their labor, because you want to make sure that you're providing them everything that they need to be successful. And then finally,
just to interject, Kola, are you doing anything specific, especially to bridge the gap for the women? Because the higher rates even among the youth for unemployment is among the women. Is there any specific
definitely. Yes, most definitely. I think what we found specifically for women is that the average land sizes tend to be smaller. And so one of the things that we did from very early on is designed our model to be as inclusive as possible to support, to be able to support in a financially sustainable way the smallest line sizes. So we actually, our model is able to support farmers with as small as 0.1 hectares. In addition, one of the challenges that we have found is, I think, due to some, cultural reasons, you often find in some of the regions that we operate that the women are not as actively engaged in these types of models. So what we've actually done, working very closely with the community, is to design a specific program just for women called our Women Economic Development Initiative, which designs tailored credit packages and programs for women. This year alone, we supported nearly 20,000 women to start small micro businesses in rural communities. This year, we expect to scale that up to over 50,000 women, with a goal of reaching about 200,000 women over from 2020 to 2022. So we are definitely focusing on that piece as well. I think the wanted to basically touch on one of the fundamental reasons why it has historically been on people have not been able to support entrepreneurs in rural communities financially sustainably. I think one of the biggest challenges of trying to support an entrepreneur in a rural community is first and foremost the fragmentation. They tend to have very small businesses and they're spread out over a very large geographic area. So what this creates is a very high cost to serve. And so, what we've been able to accomplish with Babangona is to utilize both a tremendous amount of technology. We have today the single largest technology organization dedicated to smallholder farmers on the continent, a team of over 30 people building dozens and dozens of applications at any point in time to support this population. But by using that technology, we're able to overcome that fragmentation and develop really highly effective logistics systems to be able to serve these farmers very effectively. Because unfortunately, we not only have to be able to provide them online services, training, education, so on and so forth, but offline services, moving hundreds of thousands. I think in a typical year, just to put in context, we have to move 100,000 metric tons of product to something like 50 to 60,000 discrete farmers' fields and get that product there and actually aggregate back product. And what that requires is very sophisticated logistics infrastructure, where we're able to today be able to service tens of thousands of farmers through a network of over 7,000 discrete logistics centers.
Thanks, Kola. That's very exciting, and I mean, it's a no-brainer why this was featured as one of the best practice examples. So just going back to the same issue of gender, I want to ask Ush, especially because at Bayer Foundation, reading from your work, I know that you have worked to support a gender-smart approach. Can you tell us more about that, especially around the issue of youth and entrepreneurship, and also summarize for us what that approach has been able to achieve in terms of food security?
Great, of course. I mean, I think Kola mentioned it already, and I think this is something that we all see when we think about agriculture Africa or smallholder farmers in general globally. The major part of what is the work that is done in these areas is done by women. So I think one of the biggest steps we have to do is actually to visualize the work that women are doing and giving them a voice. We at Bayer, we are looking for we call it a gender smart approach. So the idea is really to put a gender lens to everything what we do. So always envision there are men and women, so it's a whole community that we need to address. And I can give you one example, which is, it's an early example, but the results are already very promising. And it's not from Africa, because we started our Better Life initiative in India. And in India, Better Life Farming is an entrepreneur focused area where we support agri-entrepreneurs to build up a little shop which they serve then the surrounding community. And a specific area in the tomato growing area in India, we saw that it's mainly the work in the fields are done by women. The work is done by women, but they are, due to some social constraints, have difficulties to go to men for training, for buying products. So what we did, we employed women entrepreneurs and women trainers, so that this is now a very woman-centric activity that we do. And we see that there is a huge success because the women farmers are coming to the women entrepreneurs and learn and train by them. And I think this is a very promising result that we see, what we also want to scale up in, not only in India, but also in other areas. Another thing that we're doing with our training activities, for example, our BAGAP service training activity, it's a tool which was developed with value chain partners to train farmers in good agriculture practice, safe handling and certification and so on. Here we also always disseminate between women and men. So we also focus on trainings where we can say at what time can we make the training so that women can actually attend the training. How can we ensure that they can reach the training facilities? So these are all things that you need to have in mind when you want to do a woman-centric approach. So when can they attend? How can we get them to attend? How can we actually give them a voice and the opportunity to learn and to accelerate their knowledge? So these are a few of the ideas that we have, and it's definitely something that we want to approach for Africa as well.
Okay, thank you. I also want to remind all of you who are listening to us live, either on YouTube, LinkedIn, or through the Bayer Foundation website, that you have an opportunity to ask your questions through the chat to any of our panelists. So please keep your questions coming. And now I would like to take one of the first questions that we have received from Mr. Ingo. And he says that he understands that Africa youth are very tech savvy and they are very keen to use technology innovation. And so he says, in contrast, that in Germany, we see skepticism in terms of use of technology, at least that's experience of several NGOs in trying to promote technological options. So what would be your comments to this critical attitude, comparing what the experience is in Africa, especially, and his experience, what he has we are seeing in other developed countries. So any of you can take that. What do you think could be the reason behind that? Anyone would want to go first to answer the question? Yes, Ush, please, can we go on?
Okay, great. I think it's the opportunity in Africa to, or let's phrase it differently. There is a bigger need in Africa to achieve something new and to go new steps, because existing activities are not successful or not opening up opportunities for young people. Therefore, and of course, the dissemination of digital technology is also much higher, especially when it comes down to the ag sector in Africa than we have it in Germany. I wouldn't say that German farmers, for example, are not open for innovation, but we also have to see that the age structure of German farmers is much different than it is in Africa. So the typical age of a farmer is somewhere above 60 in Germany. And in Africa, it is much lower. So that is also a big explanation why in Africa, the acceptance of digital solutions is much higher than it is in Germany, for example, or in Europe.
Okay, Monica, what do you think about the disparity that we see?
Yeah, I think it's a very good observation. And for me, it's also a result that, of course, our living standards have been raised in the recent years. And so there's a lot to lose. So people are hesitant to invest in something new. And you can also call it maybe complacency at one point in time. And I see this is a big danger also for Europe if we lose the competitive edge in terms of innovation. But on the other hand, that's of course a huge potential for Africa, where I think, as Ursula pointed out, it's a much younger age structure, and they are much more open to build and leverage these new technologies. So yeah, I think it's very interesting to see how the development goes, and a big opportunity for Africa.
Great, and also to mention, we have several people also tuned in live. I see we have about over 3,000 impressions so far on LinkedIn. So we appreciate you joining us for this very, very insightful conversation. So we have also another question that's on the Bayer Foundation website. And Peggy would like to know, and I think this I want to direct to Reiner. Reiner, what are the next steps for this study? Are you going to move, for example, to Southeast Asia or any other region? What's the next steps? What do we expect to see from you and your team?
It certainly would be interesting to have a look at other continents. I spent some time in a country like Bangladesh, which was a very poor country, poorer than many African countries 30, 40 years ago. And but Bangladesh has developed enormously, especially by investing into women's programs, education, health, and agriculture. So today, the life expectancy, which is a very good indicator for well-being of the people in Bangladesh, is about 3 years higher than, or a bit higher than in India, which is in terms of GDP much richer, and it's 3 or 4 years higher than in Pakistan. So that means that even countries under difficult conditions can improve in terms of development enormously. And it would be very interesting to have an exchange, not only within Africa, so that Africans can learn from other African projects, but to other countries with similar experiences in development, like Bangladesh, like Vietnam or Cambodia. And I've always seen that it's much easier for a farmer to learn from another farmer. So I don't want to go to a farmer in Africa and tell him what he or she should do. But if a farmer can look over the shoulder of another farmer that has some success in a field that he wasn't or she wasn't used to, that has an enormous effect, and they copy whatever is successful in a minute.
Okay, thank you for that. We have some quite interesting questions coming in. And one of the questions is really, Janina is asking, can you really break this down? And I think this is for all of us in the panel. Make this very practical, you know. How would you want to see society react to this study? In specific terms, could you give her a practical way of or how we can make these insights to support more of these leapfrogging initiatives? What would you be one of your takeouts? So very practical answers, maybe brief. What do you think? What's a takeout for you from you that you would want to propose for the society? So everybody, Kola, you can go first. Yes.
Well, I think at the end of the day, it really comes down to creating scalable solutions, right?
How do you do that, Kola? Very practical. Tell us what to do.
Very practical.
Yes.
So the question you asked, why do things not scale? Right? I think the reality at the end of the day is these are oftentimes very complex, these problems that we're trying to solve can oftentimes be very complex models that require a certain amount of investment to get to a certain point where they can actually then start to scale quite rapidly. And oftentimes what we find is that the types of capital that are available to invest in these types of activities in those early days, unfortunately don't have that staying power. Oftentimes what you find is partners who are, as opposed to investing in trying to scale an idea, are very interested in investing in just trying in a lot of new things and looking for to invest in new ideas versus investing in scaling an idea. And so I think, so folks in the development community being very focused on how do I invest to scale? How do I fix some of those underlying structural problems that may not be sexy, but are underlying to the ability of these models to scale? And with scale, they are able to become financially sustainable. So if you look at Babangona as an example, we started in 2012. Yes, we were able to become financially sustainable back in 2016, but if we did not have partners that are willing to continuously invest with us to get us from our first 100 farmers to our first 8,000 farmers in 2016 to become successful and scalable, we would not have gotten there. And now the other challenge you face is that...
Ola, what I hear you saying is that we need sustainable financial business models and we need patient capital. Okay. So
actually, there's one more piece. There's one more piece. And I think the other piece is around when you're looking at getting to real scale. At each inflection point on that journey, there are new challenges that you face. And capital that is willing to come in and help to support overcoming those new challenges at each inflection point, that is how you get to scale.
Thank you for that. Monica, what would you say? What do we need to do to support this initiative?
Yes, I on one hand support Kola, definitely. I think it needs time and continuity. I think the other part is for me the ecosystem. Yeah, I mean connecting on one hand entrepreneurs, but also connecting them to governments and to corporates. Yeah, and that's also where, of course, we as a company are also dedicated to work together and then jointly move it forward. I think it's building the ecosystems that can make a systems change is also an important prerequisite, and we also see the Bayer Foundation as a platform to build these ecosystems. It's something we are really dedicated to, as we see it as an essential step.
Yeah, now that you're speaking about ecosystem, that's a really interesting perspective, Monica. And reading the study, I saw one of the statements as they talked about from Africa for Africa. So that was one of the phrases that was in that report. So Reiner, I mean, because you're the leader of this report, you talk about this approach where you talk about ecosystem and the concept of also looking at what solutions are from Africa and developed for Africa. But if we want to scale, if you're looking at the question you're talking about scaling, we would also want to be able to take some of these lessons to other continents. So what do you think, or what's your feeling about how this can happen? Is it possible, or is it only that these innovations can work in the African context?
I think they can be adapted to any country in a comparable state of development. It's important what Kola already said. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. If there is a project which is successful, which is working, then the government of any African or Asian or whatever country, continent should have a close look at those successful projects. And a governor in whatever, in Angola or Malawi, if he has a look at Babangona, the next question he should ask is, why don't we have something like Babangona in Angola or Malawi? Let's copy it. Let's steal this idea. These ideas are around to be stolen. Just go ahead.
Great, that's good. So I hear that learning, we need to learn from what's happening. Don't reinvent the wheel. So there's opportunity for good ideas from one country or continent to flourish in another. So I think that's one of the things also the study wanted to highlight, really bring those examples also for others to be able to learn and to be able to scale. So I would like also to ask our panelists this evening, looking at what needs to be done in the ecosystem. I mean, like, especially in the continent and not only in Africa, I'm sure this is also very true for other continents. We need a lot of support from governments to move fast in scaling. So specifically, what do you think that governments can be able to do to support scaling of especially some of these initiatives that have already been proven to be successful and that need to be scaled? Who's ready to go? Yes? What do you think about government's role in this and the support that's required?
I can go if you want.
Yes, Kola, please. Kindly go ahead.
Sure. Can you hear me okay? I think
yes,
my network's
still. We hear you.
Great. Excellent. So I think, fundamentally, governments are, what we have found is that governments are looking for those opportunities that have demonstrated impact at scale. And once they see those opportunities, they're willing to start to adjust their policies to back those. So if you look at the example with Babangona, we operated for about 4 to 5 years and demonstrated impact at scale with our model. And then the Central Bank of Nigeria actually then implemented a policy to help to catalyze Babangona-like models in the Nigerian government and back that with a significant investment of close to about $500 million in about $200 million in investment to catalyze that industry. However, I think there is a larger opportunity for private sector partners to play, I think, a more active role. I think at the end of the day, the reality is that there is a tremendous market opportunity within the African agricultural space for these companies that is completely untapped. If you look at the Nigerian market alone, it's about a $40–50 billion market opportunity. Now, the reality is if you're able to invest and create those systems that are able to unlock that market opportunity by increasing the purchasing power of smallholder farmers to start to purchase products, you create this nice virtuous cycle where you're able to actually dramatically help millions and millions of people, but at the same time create a sustainable market that is able to ensure that all stakeholders are benefiting.
Okay, thank you so much. Unfortunately, I see we are at the end of our time today. It's been a fantastic conversation. I want to appreciate the panelists who joined us today for your really, really insightful comments and conversation. Thank you for sharing your experience. We really enjoyed hearing from each of you and congratulate you for what you're doing and really applaud you and say, let's continue building back better. I want to say thank you also to Berlin Institute for bringing this study to for us to be able to learn from the experiences across different development areas of agriculture, health, and education in several countries, and for also Bayer Foundation and Bayer Crop Science who supported the work. So on behalf of the organizers and the panelists, I want to say thank you to all of you who are watching us live. Please remember the report is available on the Berlin Institute website. Go and read, and I'm sure there's also contacts of how you can be able to also take your questions and to the others and also give them your comments for any other follow-up that you would really need. So goodbye from me from Nairobi, and thank you so much. It's been a pleasure moderating this session. I wish you all well, keep safe, and goodbye. So bye. Yes.
Bye, everyone.